Welcome to Freedive Live with Ted Hardy, episode number 6. I am a competitive freediver as well as a freediving instructor. I'm the founder of Immersion Freediving as well as freedivingsafety.com. So if you haven't visited freedivingsafety.com, definitely something I would recommend. It provides a free course. It goes over the risks of the sport, goes over the basic safety rules, the do's, the don'ts. I talk about the fatality numbers. I don't sugarcoat anything. I'm talking about 50 to 75 fatalities per in the year per year in the United States. Right, so definitely something you want to be paying attention to. I go over how to tell if you're overweighted, if you're breathing in a way that's going to increase your risk of blackout, how to reduce your risk of blackout, and most importantly, I'm going to teach you what to do if your buddy has a loss of motor control and a blackout, and it's free. Right? And if learning how to save your buddy and learning how to not kill yourself isn't enough to make you take the course, I'm going to try to bribe you. There's a quiz in the program. If you pass the quiz, you're going to get emailed discounts from about 8 of the sponsors of freedivingsafety.com. So whether it's to learn to not kill yourself, save your buddy, or save some money, there's no reason not to visit freedivingsafety.com. My goal with freedivingsafety.com is a couple of things. Number one, I want to teach more people about being safe than anyone on the planet. And secondly, I want a specific change on Facebook, right? When people, I started doing this 10 years ago. When people first used to talk on Facebook or the forums, it was back then, like, hey, I'm just getting into spearfishing, I'm just getting into freediving, what do I do, right? It took a long time, but now I would say it's pretty standard. If someone asks on a Facebook group, like, hey, I just started freediving, what kind of fin should I get? Or, hey, I just started spearfishing, what kind of gun should I get? I see those posts all the time. Pretty quickly, someone's going to say you should take a class, right? Which is awesome, right? Here's what I want. I want when someone asks on the spearfishing forum, hey, what gun should I get? I'm brand new. Or, hey, I'm brand new. What fin should I get? I want people to say, first, you should visit freedivingsafety.com. Second, you should take a freediving class. And third, here's the gun you should buy or the fins you should get or the mask that I recommend, right? So I want to get it where everyone is aware of this program. It's a free resource. This makes total sense, right? I think it's something the industry has needed for a long time. So for the folks that are tuning in, do me a favor. Let me know in the comments, and also just so I can check if the comments are working. Where are you from? And if you would consider yourself more spearfisherman or kind of recreational freediver, right? And if both, that's fine, but just tell both. But just let me know. The thing I'll plant in your head is at the very end of the show, I'm going to be answering your questions. So if you've got questions, and I'm sure there's something that you don't know about freediving or breath holding that you wish you did, ask it, and I'll likely answer it, right? As long as I got time, I'll go through and answer the questions at the end. What's up, Claudio? So today's topics, what I'm going to cover is 3 main things. I'm going to share, you're going to see firsthand a video of what I call is the worst freediving blackout rescue I have ever seen. So many mistakes, so many things done not ideally, but the guy's fine, right? So the point is not to pick on the guy, right? Because he saved his buddy's life. So we can't pick on him. We can't get mad about that. He saved his life because, and I show this video in every class, because the fact that he was there, and even though he did a lot of things wrong, he still saved the guy's life, right? So it proves that you just got to be there. So we're going to watch that video. I'll go over the mistakes that are made in that video. So hopefully, if you encounter that situation, you don't make those same mistakes. The next thing I'll be covering is a very common mistake that I see among new freediving instructors. And the reason I say that is, well, one, I've seen new instructors make this mistake, and I used to make it all the time, right? Maybe if you're a freediving instructor, you're smarter than me, and you're not making the mistake that I was. I certainly made it a lot. Kirk used to have to holler at it about me. He used to holler at me about it, and he used to make me so tense because I was irritated that I was making the mistake. And I'll tell you for sure, if you're not a freediving instructor and you're just a regular Joe and you see a safety issue, I'm probably pretty sure you're going to make the same mistake that I would make and the other instructors make. So I'll go over that and how to avoid that. And then lastly, I'm really excited about this. I've got video footage of Jeremy Gamble. He's the owner of Spearing Magazine, and I've got footage of him. So he took the course with me twice, many years ago. He took it as a private course with me, and then he came down here and took it with some folks. And so he learned the, the freediving entry that I teach, right? And then what he did was he went home and then he figured out how to integrate that into spearfishing. So he's got a very unique and kind of, I think, pretty special way. He basically combines what I do and then how he takes that gun down to depth in a super efficient manner, right? So I'm going to show you that video so you guys can see how he does it. Okay, next question I got for you. So these Freedive Lives have been rocking and rolling. This is episode number 6. I'm trying to do 4 a week, right? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Every 7 p.m. I resurrected the old version of this was TED Talks Freediving. I did those on Instagram. And I did those once a week, and I crashed and burned after 20. Right? I quit. I gave up. So now I'm doing 4 a week. I'm not so sure that's the best strategy. So let me know. How many do you think I'm going to get, right? Am I going to be able to continue 4 a week? How long will I be able to do that? Let me know what you think. All right. So let's go over this video of the kind of the worst blackout rescue I've seen. Now, and let me be clear, I say that because it is. There's a lot of things that are bad, but in no way am I saying this negative on the guy that did the rescue. He saved the guy's life. We can't be mad at him. He saved his life. There's so many blackouts that end up in fatalities because the person's not there, right? So give me a second with little doodads. Let me get this thing turned on. Hopefully I can make the technology work. So that you all can see this. Look at that. Oh my gosh, it's almost like I know what I'm doing. I can convince people I might know what I'm doing, Jeremy. All right. Da, 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 da. Right. Worst. All right, here we go. Okay. All right, so you can see the guy coming up. He's asking for help, which is awesome. Letting his buddy know that he needs some help. But he's not really helping him. There's the release of air, so he just blacked out. And now he just hit the surface, and he is blacked out, making no motion. He is sinking down to the bottom of the ocean. All right, buddy grabs him.
Hey, get up! Hey! Hurry up!
See, he did
Hurry up!
everything wrong.
Get over
He had
here!
no idea what to do. Because he was there. He was just 3, 5 feet ago. He does everything wrong. I mean, it's the worst rescue I've ever seen. Now, that's only because
All right, so here we go back again. Sorry, I don't know what was going on with the audio. All right, so you can see, so this is part that drives me nuts, right? You can see his airways just constantly going in the water. So let's back this up, right? So, oh my gosh, come on. Ted, you can do it. All right, so he's at the surface now, and he's calling for the boat, right? And that's totally reasonable, right? Absolutely reasonable to be calling for the boat. What he's not doing is he should be taking the mask off. He should be blowing across the eyes. But what's happening is that airway is getting dumped, right? The number one rule in freediving is protect the airway, right? And so you can see that airway just keeps going in the water, right? And that's going to make water get in the lungs. So now his buddy's coming over. They're trying to drag him to the boat. You can see how his hand's locked in that position. And he's been out for he's out for, if I remember correctly, I had timed it once in this video, he's out for over 2 minutes, which is really bad. Now there's all this stuff with the line and then the gun. So they're dealing with this gear, and his airway just keeps going in the water. And what they don't know is at this point the video stops, and if I had the audio on, it's actually really scary. They're hollering at him for almost another minute. They're talking about his son, you got to come back, and he eventually comes around. But he was out the last time, I should have looked, I think it was over 2 minutes the last time I checked it. So that was a long, long, long blackout. All right, let me see if I can make this go away. How does that work? Oh my gosh. All right, so the biggest thing that I just cringe when I see that video is so he asked for, well, they'll call it. So he asked for help, and he didn't do anything. He sat there because he probably didn't know what that meant, right? So if you saw in the video, he was going like this, saying, "I need help." He didn't help him. He then hit the surf. I mean, he blacked out on the way up. You can see the release of air. He didn't see that, know that it was a blacking out. So the guy hit the surface, was already out, and then started sinking back down to the bottom. At that point, the guy's like, "Oh," and then so he goes and grabs him. That's awesome, right? So he went to go get him. Now, the reason this guy is alive is because that guy was there, right? I mean, we can talk about all the things he did wrong. He was there, and showing up, just being near is that's you get this video proves that's 99% of the job. You can do everything else wrong, and you can still save the guy, right? So you can say he did things wrong, but what does the average situation do? The average situation is the guy blacks out, sinks to the bottom of the ocean. The buddy's 50 feet down the reef trying to shoot a bigger fish, and then the guy's dead. And there's no bad rescue at all. There's no rescue. Okay, so he sinks down. He sees that because he's at least watching him. Boom, he goes and grabs him. Now, what he doesn't do is he doesn't know about protecting the airway, right? The number one rule in freediving is protect the airway. And all that simply means is we don't want water to get into the lungs, right? It goes in the mouth or the nose. Well, there's two paths that water can get into the lungs, in the mouth of the lungs, right? So we've definitely seen situations where a spear fisherman is watching them. They go down and rescue them, and they pull them up to the surface. But because they don't close that airway, we teach it, I call it the face sandwich, 3 points of contact. One hand, heel here, heel of the hand goes on the chin, other fingers go on the mask, and the other hand goes in the back of the head. Face sandwich, there ain't no way water's getting in there. You will not get water in if you do that, right? And it's not the blackout that causes us the problem, it's the water in the lungs that kills us every time. So when he brought that guy to the surface, he could have put him in that face sandwich, but he didn't do that, but that's fine, right? He at least brought him up to the surface. Once he got him on the surface, he got him on his back, which was good. But there was got him on his back, which was good. He was definitely overweighted. How do we know that? Because when he blacked out, the first thing he did was went straight down to the bottom of the ocean, right? So because he was overweighted, because what should happen if you black out, if you're weighted properly, the way a smart freediver does, you actually float at the surface. How awesome is that? Right? A lot better than sinking down to the bottom of the ocean with all the cool kids. So he could have taken the weight belts off, made that rescue a little easier, but a better situation was him just be weighted properly to begin with. But so he struggled keeping that airway up. He called his buddy over, and he was basically just hollering at the person to come over, and they weren't really doing anything actively to bring him back, right? What they could have done that would have brought him back almost immediately is taking that mask off, blow across the eye, and tap on the cheek, right? Come on, man, breathe. Come on, breathe for me, breathe. Right? And do what we call blow, tap, top. And that would have snapped him out of it as soon as he got to the surface, right? Because that wasn't done, it took him till they got him. And then when the boat got, I mean, his airway just keeps going forward, is going backward. So all of that airway is getting dumped in the water. So here's what that does, right? When you have a blackout, your body is actually smart. It's like, okay, I was just in the ocean, I was just underwater, there's water all around here, so I'm gonna have a blackout. The blackout's a choice the body does. It does that in order, can actually, believe it or not, to conserve oxygen, right? Consciousness is an oxygen-consuming luxury that the body can't afford right now, so it does it as a safety mechanism. It turns blackout, flips the switch, you go out, laryngospasm shuts off to protect the airway, because the body knows the number one rule in freediving is protect the airway, so that laryngospasm shuts off to protect the lungs. So at this point, the body is intentionally not breathing. Why? Because the body knows if it takes a breath right now, what's it going to get? It was just in the water. It's going to get all water, and it's all over, right? We don't do water in the lungs. That kills us every time. So because his airway kept getting dunked underwater, the body was terrified to take a breath, and that's why it took, if I remember correctly, probably like 3 minutes before that guy took a breath. It's crazy long. And the reason the body took that long is because it kept getting dunked underwater, right? So, if he had just, like, for instance, I say it jokingly in class, but let's say you took the class for me and you took it 8 years ago, right? And you forget every single thing of the rescue ever, right? If someone blacks out, if you just grab their hair, and just pull their head out of the water and just sit there, they're going to take a breath. What's the number one rule in freediving? Protect the airway. If you grab them by the top of the head and then just pull them out of the water, right? they're going to have no water in the airway, and they're going to take a breath. And they'll actually take a breath a lot faster than what that guy did. Now, what we do is by putting them on the back, by taking the mask off, blowing across the eyes, that tells the body, hey, we're in air. It's safe. And as soon as the body understands, oh, it's not water around, that's why immediately they take a breath, right? So what I see from the rescues that I've done is instead of 2, 3, 4 minutes before the person takes a breath, I'm close enough to grab. I see the issue, I grab them, put them on the back, mask off, blow across the eyes, every time, take a breath. Immediately, right? Because I'm right there, right? So part of it is because I'm close enough to grab that I'm able to fix the situation instantaneously. And part of it is that blowing across the eyes. Now, let's say I was maybe 30 or 40 feet from a guy. He hits the surface, blacks out. Let's assume he's playing right and he's properly weighted, so he blacks out and he's just face down floating on the surface, but I'm 30 or 40 feet away from him. I'm going to beeline over to him. I'm going to turn him over, mask off, blow across the eyes. It might not work right away. Is that a deficiency in the blow, tap, talk rescue method? No. It's a deficiency in my setup, right? I was so far away from him that it took too long to get to him. In that case, I might have to do, 3 breaths across the eyes. That might not even work. Then I might have to start actually delivering breaths for him, right? But as long as you are close enough to grab, you're grabbing them immediately, you're blowing across the eyes. I personally have never seen that not immediately work, right? I think maybe I had to do it twice, right? But that works, right? And that's the reason we do it, right? So if you want to learn more about how to do that rescue that I'm talking about in detail, you can visit freedivingsafety.com. It's a free course, and it'll go over that in detail much more than I can do here. All right. All right, so so I've got the freedivingsafety.com, my most, absolute without a doubt, my most popular course that I sell, online course that I have, and it's free, and it has more signups than any other course that I have, is my take a 20 to 30% bigger breath course, right? So this is the very first thing my students learn in the classroom is they learn to take a 20 to 30% bigger breath. Why does that matter? If you want more time underwater, which I'm sure you do for whatever the hell it is you do underwater, take more fuel. If you take a bigger breath, you're going to be able to do more, right? I've never, in the 10 years of teaching this class, had a student where I taught them how to do that, where they went, I don't know, that's the same amount of air I take every time. They all go, holy crap, I can't believe how much more air that is, right? I had my first intermediate class I ever taught on my own. I won't go into that whole story, but I was in Grand Cayman, and Kirk waved the magic wand and let me teach the intermediate course the first time. I was nervous as hell. I was up all night pacing around and doing all my slides. And this guy shows up to class, John Hulverson, and I start off, I'm going to teach you the biggest breath you've ever taken. And he rolls his eyes at me hard and is like, yeah. Right? He was like, yeah, that's a bunch of bullshit. I taught him how to do it. He was like, holy crap, this is the biggest breath I've ever taken. And he went on to break 2 U.S. freediving records, right? So you're going to take a bigger breath, right? The other analogy I say is, look, if you take your car and you can increase the size of the gas tank by 20-30%, it's going to go farther. I guarantee it. I mean, that's just the way it works, right? So you can check that course out. For those that want to access all that stuff, look at that. That's where you can access the 20-30% bigger breath course at no charge. And what I'll be doing is throughout this presentation, I'll be talking about these courses and these links and whatever. When I'm done with the show, give me 5 minutes, and I got to go back and each of them, and I cut and paste and I put everything in there. So if you want to access, you just go right there, onlineclasses.emergentfreediving.com. Or you can just wait 5 minutes, the show's over, and then all the links will be in the post. Thank you, Larry. That's an improvement. All right. So for those that are just tuning in, I'm going to be covering one of the mistakes that I see a lot of entry-level freediving instructors make, and I say that because I used to make the same mistakes. And I'm also going to be showing Jeremy Gamble, owner of Spearing Magazine, how he does his entry with the spear gun. He's super slick the way he does it. He combines what he learned in my class and then what he does for spearfishing. All right. Another thing to think about before I go into that, for those that are tuning in as well that are new, do me a favor, put your where you're from and if you're more of a free diver or a spear fisherman, or both. And also, if you got questions for me, I'm going to be answering questions at the end. So if you got questions, think about it and then put it in the comments, and I will absolutely go through and try to answer all of those at the end. Okay, and so just so you guys know, for those putting questions on there, I'm not even reading those because I get distracted and I start answering the questions in the middle of what I'm talking about. So I've learned that the best thing to do is ignore the questions and wait to the end, and then I'll go through and I'll answer them all there. So if you're asking questions, you're wondering why I'm not responding to them, that's why. I'm learning. All right, so here's a common mistake that I see when I used to work with PFI. We had lots of instructors. I would see the new instructors make, and I used to make it too, and it drove me crazy when I would make it because Kirk would see it, and I'm like, oh no. Right, so the thing was, we would be teaching, like this is back when I was teaching for performance freediving. We'd have these big classes, 20, 25 people. We've got instructors everywhere monitoring the statics. And I would see these people, in the intermediate course, they're coming up 5 minute statics. Some people 5.5, 6. I mean, these people are doing crazy breath holds. And I would see them come up, grab the side of the pool. They do their 6 recovery breathing, just like we taught them. And then they start just have a little bit of a shaker, right? There's a little bit of a loss of motor control. And I'm sitting there. I'm right next to the guy. And I just had that deer in the headlight look. And I'm just looking at him. And my brain goes, shit. And then my brain goes, no, he's okay, no. And then now this is only maybe taking a half a second. And then every time, Kirk, grab him, Ted, grab him. And I'm, whoop, and go and I grab him and it's fine. And every time he would do that, I would hang my head in shame because I'm like, he shouldn't have had to holler at me to do that, right? I should have just grabbed him right when I saw it. But what I will tell you, and so, eventually I got over it. And then when I was, kind of the head instructor and the other instructors that were there, I was the same way. I'm like, hey, grab him, right? And they would see it. And there's just that little bit of disconnect where you're like, is this really happening? Yeah, it's happening. So what I would tell you is whenever the other thing is, I remember specifically grabbing people and they were fine and them getting mad at me. Right? Like they were coming up for a dive, and I'm like grabbing them. They're like, "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh God, I'm sorry." Right? And so I had this well, I don't want to grab them because they might get irritated. If you're in doubt, if someone comes up from any dive, they're coming up from spearfish, and they don't look right, grab them under the arm, right? And if they're fine, say, "Sorry, dude, just making sure you're okay." Right? So what I will tell you is, I see it, I felt it. You have that little bit of a delay where you're not quite sure this is real. You're not quite sure what's going on. And what I had to tell myself when I was new is whenever I had any of those thoughts, my brain said, grab them. All right, so hopefully that if you see that, you can learn from that so you don't make the mistake that I used to make. And I would see a lot of the other instructors make. All right, so next thing we'll be covering is I'm going to show you the video footage of Jeremy and his how he does his entry, how I basically combined what he learned in my class and then how he uses it for spearfishing. That's pretty slick the way he does that. Yep, doggy. That's never a good sign, right? I always jokingly say I put the fins on your feet for a reason. If I wanted you to swim with your hands, I put the fins on your hands, but I don't put the fins on your hands. I put the fins on your feet, so you swim with your feet, not with your hands. If they're swimming with their hands, grab them. Grab them. So many of the blackout videos that I see that, right? I showed one a couple days ago on the show, and that was how you could see the swimming with the hands business. All right, so the program that I'm most excited about, and the students are most excited about, is the new program that I launched about a month ago, and it's my 28-day freediving transformation program. So what I typically ask people, I say, look, if you're watching this show, you must be interested in freediving or spearfishing. I'm sure you're interested in improving your bottom time. You're sure you're interested in learning how to dive deeper and hold your breath longer. Right? So I'm sure the answer to those questions is yes, of course I'm interested in that, Ted. Then I would ask you, what are you currently doing right now to achieve those results? And the typical response is, well, I go freediving wherever I can. Yeah, that helps, but that's not targeted, specific training, right? If you ask a football player what they do to get better at football, they don't just go, I go play football once a week. No, they play football, they go to the gym, they do interval training, they do cardio training, they do calisthenics, they do all these different things. right? So what I'm always trying to explain to my students who are mostly spearfishermen is competitive freediving is not the same as spearfishing. It's not. But competitive freedivers, we can dive really deep and we can stay down a really long time. And those are two things, whether you're a spearfisherman, a photographer, whatever you're doing underwater, you should be interested in how we do that. And the way that we do that is we do very specific, targeted training exercises, right? This course teaches the 5 best dry land training exercises that I know of. And notice what I said, dry land. Why is that important? That means you can do it at home. Sure, if you go spearfishing 7 days a week, you probably don't need the program because you dive like a rock star. Because you dive 7 days a week, right? But if you don't have access to that, right? You don't have access to a pool, you don't have access to a buddy, right? These are the 5 best training exercises I know of that you can do at home. The program is breaking up into 4 sections. There's one on freediving safety, not surprisingly. There's one on breathing fundamentals, going over what you need to know in that area. Then there's the 5 training exercises. And then the last section is the 28-day program, right? So I'm going to lay out a game plan. I'm going to tell you what to do, when to do it. You need to give me 3 breath holds a week, right? And each breath hold exercise you do is different. It's not all the same one. Each one is targeting a different area. So you're going to do, that takes about 20 to 45 minutes, 3 days a week. 2 days a week, you're going to do 5-minute stretching. And then 2 days a week, get off. All right, you stack that together for 28 days. You're going to absolutely radically change your physiology for freediving, make you dive deeper, hold your breath longer, all that stuff, right? And so cool thing is, I guess a week into the program, I added a private Facebook group. So every morning, first thing I do is I get up and I answer all the people's questions, and they're instructed to every day. Day 1, I did this. Day 2, they do this. So they're all talking to each other and motivating each other. So I've got a private Facebook group for you. Another thing that you get that I just negotiated recently is Noob Spearo, awesome podcast based out of Australia. They have a 99 tips spearfishing ebook. It has 99 tips how to improve your spearfishing from spearfishing all over the world. It's got a lot of awesome pictures and illustrations, and you get that for free. Right? I literally pay them for every one that I sell so that you can access it for free, right? So if you're a spearfisherman, this is an awesome resource, right? You get a calendar to stick on the refrigerator, right? And that way you note your progress on the calendar. That way every time you go get a beer or bonbon, you see the thing you're supposed to be doing, so it motivates you. And then the last thing I got is I've got a cheat sheet so that after you've watched all the videos, you can print that out so you kind of remember what you have to do. You don't have to go rewatch the videos. And you get access to the videos forever. So that's the 28-day transformation program. It's $95. I'm going to put a code at the end of the show where you can save $10 off on it. It'll be live. The name of the code will be live 403. But I'll put that in the comments, the post when I'm done. All right, so let's take a look at Mr. Jeremy Gamble. So this is video footage of how he does his entry. So he went through my program, learned kind of the basic entry, that we call bend, lift, pull, kick, right? Does that perfectly. Then the question is, how do you take that and then you integrate it with the spear gun? So enough talking, let's just watch, right? So you'll get to see how he does it, and he does it pretty slick. Okay. Let me see if this is working. Holy cow, it's working. Okay, so let's start this over. Right, so we're just going to watch it a couple times. Right, so notice how he has the handle, right? I thought that was interesting, right? So he's got the handle the way I would think would be backwards. So a couple things. That gun is tight to the body. It's not creating any extra drag, which is super cool, right? So let's watch it a couple times. Handle's facing out. And then he starts his dive. He does his bend. So he does bend. And then the gun's just right in position. Then he does his pull with his other arm. And that's it, right? Bend, lift, pull. Now he's kicking, right? He keeps that thing nice and tight. He's got his hand on his nose so he can equalize. And then boom, 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 straight down, right? So that's a super slick way to do this. What I will tell you is you watch that, right? You get an idea of what it looks like. I'm going to be working on a course with Tim on, I've got a bunch of different camera angles and explain it in a little bit more detail. But I figure at least if you're curious how it's done and you see how he does it, that gives you an idea of how he does it, right? And you got to admit, it's pretty efficient. It's pretty streamlined. Doesn't waste any energy. These are all things that, as a freediving instructor, I get super excited about, right? So thank you for letting me film that, Jeremy. All right, so. Last thing, I'm going to go over questions. So if you guys have questions, put them in the comments for me. And I'm going to go look through those. So bear with me. I've got to go to another window where I can see those. Oh no. I did not load the damn... All right, so mistake time. Yep. Okay, so I made a mistake. I didn't have the chat that you guys can see on the screen, it doesn't scroll. So I can't see the past questions. I saw there were questions on there, but I can't see them. I normally have to open up another window, and then I can go back and scroll through. I did that, but I had issues. So basically what I'm getting at is if you asked a question, I can't see it anymore, and I know there were questions on there. So I'm just going to give you guys some time to, if you want those questions answered, put them in there. If anyone saw the question goes by and remember what they are, if you could just retype them for me, that way I can go through and answer them. But I forgot to open it up in a second window. So this whole software, all the stuff I'm using, it's a little finicky, and I'm figuring out how to do it. And as you can see, I'm making mistakes. Other thing I forgot to mention is these cups. These are I don't sell these, can't get them anywhere. I give them to the students. I'm probably going to start giving them to the students, but basically this is something you can't get anywhere unless you come take the program. If you want this, well, not this cup, but one of these cups, there's one way I will ship them to you. If you purchase the 28-day Freediving Transformation Program, like I said, it's $95. You get $10 off if you use the coupon code that I'll give you. There's also a version where you can get 2 Skype sessions with me. Right, two Skype sessions with me to discuss the training, all that sort of stuff. So if you do that, that ends up being $239. So anyone who buys that program with the 2 Skype sessions included by midnight tonight, and you send me a message on Facebook that you bought it, then I will ship you one of these. Yes, Larry, I did switch from deep apnea to Moana fins. All right, so excellent, Isaac. Glad to hear. You're one of the few people that have these cups. I sent some to Noob Spiro. I sent one to Jeremy Gamble, owner of Spearing Magazine. I sent one to Ryan from Born of Water and Stephen from Deeper Blue. Those are all businesses that support immersion freediving, what I do. So that was what I was going to do. Okay, thank you, Jeremy, for reposting that question. So I can now go back and see them. So if you guys put those questions up there, I'll be able to scroll back and see them. All right, so someone asked, doesn't a properly weighted person who is blacked out just look like they are breathing up, and how to tell if they are out? That is an excellent question. Thank you for reposting that, Jeremy. So one of the things is, in all these blackout videos I see of these spear fishing, there's one thing in common. They black out and they go to the bottom of the ocean fast, right? That is not what we want, right? That is the definition of overweighted, right? Is that you sink to the bottom of the ocean when you black out. That's not a good plan, right? You want to make it so that if you black out, a much better place to be than end up on the bottom of the ocean with the cool kids would be on the surface, right? Face down or face up. Probably going to be face down, right? Face down on the surface. So the question is, how would you tell? Well, I'll tell you this. If you're 30 or 40 or 50 foot away, you wouldn't. You wouldn't be able to tell. They would come up and they would just go face down, and you would see the snorkel up in the air, and they would look like they're breathing up. If you're close enough to grab them, you're going to see it. Number one, on the way up, if they were blacking out underwater, you would see that release of air, and you'd see them stop kicking and go limp, right? Pretty big sign that they blacked out, right? Secondly, maybe they hit the surface and they're conscious, and all of a sudden, if you're close enough to grab, you see, and they fall facing the water, you're going to know that's a blackout. You don't need to be a freediving instructor to know that guy just blacked out. But if you are 50 foot away, 30 foot away, and you look over at the guy and he's face down, yeah, you're going to have no idea that he blacked out, right? So this, all what it goes back to, this is why you have to be close enough to grab, right? You ain't going to miss someone blacking out if you're close enough to grab. It's going to be quite obvious when you're like, oh, did you, what about the fish down there? And he's like, not moving. He blacked out, right? So that's basically the answer to that question. All right, so I'll give you guys a couple more, a little bit more to put a question. If not, I'm going to wrap this sucker up, and then I will be back Thursday. It'll be the last show of the week. I'll be doing that at 7 p.m. So that will be the goal, is doing them 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday. So if you guys got questions, put those in. I am here to answer your questions. What I will tell you is, for those that tuned in, I appreciate you tuning into the show. If you like the show, want to support the show, there's one simple, single thing you can do to help me support the show. Is that when you leave this video, hit the share button, put it on your page, tell them Free Dive Live with Ted Hardy is awesome and they should tune in. Right, Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's the single easiest thing you can do to support the show. Do dive lights help with diving in low vis? I have never. Okay, so I've never been night diving, right? So night diving, you absolutely need lights. I've never been night diving, but I have been diving in low vis. I have not. Okay, well, that's not true. In some competitive situations where it's really deep and dark, they put lights on the line. But here's what I would say is kind of a better thing to think about. If you're diving in low vis, I'm not saying lights don't have a point, but then you got another hand. If you're spearfishing, you got a gun, you got a light, and it leads to more issues. Here's something I would mention. If you're diving in low vis, here's what I would suggest instead of a light. Is the problem with diving in low vis. What I mean by that is, all of this safety revolves around you watching your buddy. They do a dive, you're at the surface, you're watching them. If a fish goes by, you're not going to shoot it because you're taking care of your buddy, right? Because you want to make sure they don't die. So you're at the surface, they come up, you're close enough to grab, you watch them for no less than 30 seconds, done. That's what freediving safety is. The problem is, my students are like, great, Ted, like maybe you live in fantasy land where you have, 80 foot of visibility. Where I dive, we spearfish in 40 foot of water and we have 10 foot of viz. You can't see anyone. There's no watching your buddy. There's no seeing anything. It's just snot. It's black. Okay? So you understand, if you're diving in 40 foot of visibility, 40 foot of depth, and you've got 10 foot of visibility, they make a dive, you have no idea where they are. You can't be close enough to grab. You have no idea where they're going, so they come up, you're going to be quite separated. So when you dive in low vis situations like that, where I call it is the diver is diving out of vis, out of your range of seeing, one of the best things you can do to remedy that situation, especially if you're spearfishing, is put a float line on the gun. Now you make that drop. You have no idea where that guy is because you've got terrible viz. But what do you see clear as day at the surface, right? You see the float, right? And so you just follow the float around, right? And you're going to learn that guy's going to come up there. She's going to come up pretty near that float, right? And so that is an excellent tool for what to do if you're diving in low vis. The other things you can do, depending on how bad the viz are, is you can make yourself more visible. And you can do that by getting tape on the snorkel, white, yellow. Wouldn't recommend red. Red's one of the first color that disappears when you go underwater, so I wouldn't recommend red. White or yellow works good. Put it on the snorkel. Put it on the back of your weight belt, so if you're cruising along the bottom this way, right, they can see. You can put it on the weights or put tape around the weight belt. And then also I learned this from Garo from Gannett Dive Company. He mentioned putting that white or yellow tape on the back of the fin pocket and on the heel, right? So that you're getting it from all sorts of ways. So those are things that you can do. Just make yourself more visible. Is use the tape, right? Snorkel, weight belt, fin pocket. Okay. All right. So give me a second. I'm gonna go out of here, and now because I did what I was supposed to do, I can scroll back and see all the questions because I'm learning. So someone asked a question. Jeremy asked neck weight to belt weight ratio. Neck weights are awesome. Neck weights are something that primarily competitive freedivers use, and I wish I had one. But it's basically something we wear around our neck. Let me tell you why we use them. Tell you why you might not want to use them or you might want to use them. But the neck weights, so the main reason that competitive freedivers use them is if I'm doing, let's say, a 200 or 300 foot dive, whatever, 279 foot, that's my deepest dive. So when I'm doing a 279 foot dive, I am kicking down to about 130 feet, and after 130 feet, I stop kicking and I go, and I sink the rest of the way. We call that sink phase, right? So if I'm got the neck weight down here, so let's say down here with my head, all the weight's at the bottom, that's going to make it easier for me to sink straight, right? If I've got all the weight on my weight belt, you understand I'm more likely to get wonky, right? So if I put it all at the bottom, it's easier to sink, right? Because you're at the bottom. The analogy or the way you can visualize that, if you know badminton, that little thing they hit back and forth, the shuttlecock, right? You throw that thing in the air, it's going to fall perfectly straight because the weight's at the bottom, right? So that's why we wear neck weights. It's also dynamic guys that do dynamic apnea back and forth across the pool. They do it because most of our buoyancy is in our lungs, right? So if you put the weight belt, so this is the middle, right? So this is, let's see, my head. This is my waist, and I put the weight belt here. The bulk of my buoyancy is in my lungs, so I tend to go like this, right? How are spear fishermen spending most of their time when they're spearfishing? They're cruising along the bottom, right? So you always kind of have all your belt weights here. You kind of plow through the water this way. So competitive freedivers quickly figured out that we want to use neck weights because if I'm going to go 8 laps across the pool, I want to do that as efficiently as possible. So I want to be as trim as possible. So we use neck weights. Okay. Now, every class I teach, the students, I don't say anything about the neck weight. I put the neck weight on. I go teach the class, and either the second day I'm on the boat, they're like, "What the hell is that thing around your neck?" And I explain that it's the neck weight, and I explain that I absolutely don't recommend that you students use this because I'm dealing with people that are new, right? So imagine you got someone that's new, they're nervous about being in the ocean, they've never been 20 feet below the water, and they're nervous about doing a 60-foot dive. I'm like, here, let me put this thing, you're gonna stretch it around your neck like this, it'll make you a little bit more efficient. They're gonna be like, no, thank you, right? So it's not something I recommend for beginners because you are putting something around the neck. Now it's obviously not choking you, but it's just, if you're new, you don't need to be messing around with neck weights, right? It can be a little bit uncomfortable. All people that use neck weights say that they didn't like it at first. Once they get used to it, they like it. But if you've got a ton of experience and you want to try it, so I love it. Jeremy Gamble, owner of Speary Magazine. I went out with him actually to shoot that video, and he had a neck weight on. I'm like, yes, right? It's because I love it when spearfishermen pick up things that we do as competitive freedivers and see there's a benefit for it. Daryl Wong. Right, guy makes Wong spear guns. He's been using neck weights for 10 years. He took the class a long time ago, and he bought onto it. Now, there are some issues with neck weights. Most people don't know what the hell a neck weight is. So if there's an emergency or something goes wrong, they know, oh, I should get rid of that weight belt. They're not going to know, oh, I should get rid of that neck weight. They're not going to see it. They're not going to know what it is. And they're not going to know how to get rid of it, right? Like, if I see someone with a neck weight, they had a problem, I know exactly what it is. I know how to release it immediately. But your average Joe doesn't know how to do that. So one of the things PFI talks about is, it is, and you may have to find for your trim is maybe not all of the neck weight. Maybe you experiment, right? So that figure out what works for you. So that's just the other thing you want to do is you want to make it so that when you take that weight belt off, that you're absolutely going to be floating, right? So you got to experiment with that. I mean, so like when I do it, I'm trying to think. My neck weight is maybe I do half and half. So just something you gotta play around with. Competitive freedivers, as a competitive freediver, I put it all on my neck because that's what I'm trying to do. But I've got 3 freediving safeties who are extremely trained to be taking care of me, right? You're not going to have that, right? So when I'm using a neck weight in a competition, I don't have those concerns. All right, so cool. Let me go. Da, da, da. How do I mentally prepare students for deep dives? That's a complicated question because the biggest answer to that, it's not me super useful, is that so when we say deep dives, let's say we're talking the intermediate class, right? The intermediate class, the average student's doing 100-foot dives the last day. One of the reasons that's possible is because they have had, let's start with the last day. So the last ocean session, they're doing 100-foot dives. They've had 6 hours with me in the pool where I have been drilling them over and over and over how to do these things. It's not like we do it once, right? I mean, like, they're so sick of me making them do it over and over and over and over again. I'm like, all right, yeah, but you still didn't do that part right. I do it again, right? So first off, you have this extreme muscle memory, right? So they've had 6 hours with me in the pool. They've had 6 hours in the ocean preceding their last day, right? So things are on autopilot, right? They've got muscle memory going. They've got the technique is on autopilot, right? So that gives them a lot of confidence, right? If I just took them out there the first day and put the line at 100 feet and said, like, let's do it, man up and go get it, it's not going to work. They don't have the technique for it. They're going to be terrified. Another thing that gives students confidence is each day they're making small jumps, right? The first day of my intermediate class, the deepest we'll go is 50 feet. The first day, that's all, and we spend 80% of the first day at 30 feet, right? I've got guys that are already shooting fish at 70 feet, and they're like, dude, I'm like, I don't hear it. Like, you got to master this 30-foot dive, right? There's a lot of stuff going on in 30 foot, right? In fact, when you go deeper, you do nothing. To go from 60 feet to 100 feet, you're literally not moving because you're in sink phase, right? So you don't have to do anything. You just sit there. Right? So all the work's in the beginning, right? So the way I do it is I just beat the crap out of them in those early depths where they can do 30 feet over and over and over again. Every student's like, all right, Ted, let's do 50 feet. I'm like, no, do 30 feet again. So some of that is just the way that I structure the program so that they're absolutely confident and ready to do those deeper dives. Now, that really doesn't help you much because that only pertains to my students. So let me try to give you an answer that might be a little more helpful to you. First off, if you're nervous or scared about dives, you're not going to do well. You're not, right? So you don't want to be diving to depths where you're nervous and uncomfortable about it, right? The easiest way to dive terribly is to be stressed about the dive. So it's not about how deep you can dive, it's about how deep you can dive and feel comfortable. Not how deep you can dive and feel terrible and stressed about it, right? So you've got to be mentally calm for the dive that you're attempting. If you're not, then you're not ready for that dive. The other thing I would tell you is a simple thing, is I use this as a competitive freediver. I use it, no matter what I'm doing, I do this. And I make all my students do it. And I've had students come up to me and they've taken the course 3 years ago and they bitch about this, right? So one of the things that I teach them to do is when they're doing their breathing, right, diaphragmatic breathing, is I tell them to count how long they're exhaling for. Maybe they're exhaling for 10 seconds, maybe they're exhaling for 12 seconds. So in essence, they're taking a breath in from just the diaphragm, not the chest. Then they're exhaling. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000, 6, 1,000, 7, 1,000, 8, 1,000, 9, 1,000, 10, 1,000. Right, and just there, I was counting in my head. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. I'm doing that all the time when I'm on the surface. If you took a class with me, I'd be going inhale, 1,000, 2, 1,000. I'd be counting over you as you're doing your breathing. Eventually, I'd stop counting and I make them do the counting in their head, right? And I've had students come up to me 4 years after the course at Blue Wild, and they're like, every time I go out there and I'm on the surface, I hear your damn counting in my head, right? So the reason that I like the counting is for a couple of reasons. Actually, the other thing I would recommend is when you exhale, make that sound, teeth and tongue. I make all my students do that, and myself and my students find that that sound is relaxing, right? It's almost like one of those white noise machines, right? So the sound is relaxing. By making that sound, you also are limiting how much air you're exhaling, so you're not exhaling it all at once, so you're able to do a nice, long exhalation, which you want to. And then the counting does this. I'm not that smart. And when I'm counting like that, let's say it's competition. Let's say I'm doing a 200-foot dive, 250-foot dive, or whatever it is. I'm always doing that counting, and I'm not smart enough to be doing that counting and then think of other things, right? Like I can't think about what's coming up. All I can do is focus on the counting. So my students like it because it just kind of tunes everything out, and they just focus on the counting. So that would be my recommendation for that. All right, so let me go through and see if there's any other questions. I don't think so. Right. Whoa, there's some more questions. Oh, okay. All right, so I got some more questions. Someone asked, so Squid Nuts already answered his questions. Thanks for tuning in again, Squid Nuts. I'm not even going to try to say this. KO3, whatever. How should I work on my freediving technique living in a landlocked state with no experience or freediving spearos around? Watch videos online, attempt to implement good technique wherever I can, or do I really need to take a course somewhere? I absolutely recommend taking a course, right? So first thing I'd recommend is go to freedivingsafety.com. If you haven't taken a course, there's so many risks and things that you're not aware of. That this phrase is so sums up freediving. You don't know what you don't know. There's a lot of stuff. If you haven't taken a freediving course, you don't know. So freedivingsafety.com is kind of the most thorough of any place I've seen on the internet in one spot that's going to give you what you need to know from a safety standpoint, right? In essence, that course is like putting a camera in my classroom and I teach the safety program, right? In fact, that's exactly what I did. I put a camera in the classroom and I taught the safety program, right? So that's basically like sitting in my classroom and going over all the safety stuff. So for sure, I would recommend doing that. Secondly, well, you're going to learn that when you take the course. Anytime you're holding your breath in the water, you want to be with someone that knows what they're doing. So if something goes wrong, they can fix it, right? So having that knowledge is helpful. But when you think about it, so now let's say you go through this program, right? Or let's say, and when you go through the safety program, you're going to hear me over and over say, the best thing to do is take a course. Because certainly watching that course is going to give you a lot of information on safety. There's no doubt it's going to make you safer. But not as safe is taking a freediving course. Why? When you watch that course at freedivingsafety.com, you're going to watch me do the rescue. When you take a freediving course with me or another instructor, they're not going to let you watch it and go, okay, you watched me do it, let's go do something else. No, you're going to do it. Right? They're going to make you do it. You do the course with me. I think I counted, you have to do the rescues like 25, 28 times, like over and over and over and over again. So that repetition of doing it is going to really make it stick. What I would tell you is if you want to get the most out of freedivingsafety.com is when you learn to do those rescues, go to the pool, go to the guys you're diving with and practice the rescues. Obviously, it's not as good as there's an instructor working with you, but it's a lot better than you just looking at it and being like, okay, I learned how to do it. Well, yeah, but much better if you actually put it to the test, right? Actually start practicing it. Now, what I'll tell you is the reason you're going to want to take a freediving course is you're going to get the feedback from the instructor, right? And that's what the game changer is. I mean, like, for instance, you might have watched that video with Jeremy doing that entry. You watched him do it. Does that mean you're going to do it? Probably not. Now, if you watch that video, and I'm actually creating a course on how to do that entry and specifically what he's teaching, but imagine this. Imagine, you watch that video. How confident are you that you're going to be able to implement that perfectly? I'm going to tell you not very much. compare that to if you watch that video and then you jumped off of Jeremy's boat and Jeremy's with you in the water and he watches you do it and he's like, oh, actually, you know, you got like halfway there, but these two things you did out of order. So try that again, right? And if he was watching you, giving you feedback, it wouldn't take long at all. You'd have it sorted. So my ultimate suggestion is always going to be take a free diving course, right? Because you're going to get hands-on experience with an instructor. One thing, just very quickly I'll go over when it comes to picking a freediving course. There are a lot of courses out there, which is awesome. Thank God we need more instructors because there's not nearly enough instructors to educate the people that are actually freediving and holding their breath. The best way, in my opinion, to find out, I mean, obviously, this is not, I'm not here to say that, you know, PFI, the agency, is the best and these other agencies suck or you should take this one or that one. This is a good way to, let's say there's 4 freediving classes in your area and you want to find out, well, this one's PADI, this one's PFI, this one's NAUI, this one's TDI. What's the difference? Okay, here's a simple way to figure it out. Diving in the ocean or the spring or whatever it is. And when you say how many hours diving, be careful that you're not asking how long the boat trip is. You're asking how long you're in the water diving, right? And look at all the courses in your area and get those numbers and pick the one with the most. The one with the most hours in the classroom, pool, and ocean is the course you're going to learn the most in. Period. Of course it is, right? You're probably going to find that those courses that are longer are more expensive, right? So that would be one thing I would recommend. The other thing I would recommend is talk to the instructor on the phone, right? Get a feel for what they're like, talk about the freediving experience, and, you know, a more experienced instructor is going to do better, right? I've been doing this for 10 years. If you took my freediving class in 2009 when I had no experience and you compared it to the class I teach now, yeah, I teach circles around the old self from 10 years ago, all right? So hopefully that's helpful. The other thing you can look at is, I talked about it earlier, I'm not going to go over the whole thing, but I do have a course on training, and I'm actually the 28-day freediving transformation program. It goes over dry land training you can do. So I think one of the best things you can do is take that program so you get kind of your physiology sorted, and then that when you go to your freediving class, you're going to take the most out of it. So what I'm going to do moving forward is I'm probably going to start giving that 28-day program to all of my students so they can go through that before they get to class. All right, so I'm going to look for any other questions. Yeah, so someone had asked, yeah, Jeremy's gun is loaded when he does his duck dive for sure. All right, question. So someone had said, I'm in Austin, Texas. I'm PFI trained with me. I have a PADI instructor here teaching PADI certified freediving. I trust the folks he's taught with or safe to dive with, right? Yeah, I mean, any freediving course, they're going to teach you the rules. They're going to teach you safety, right? I mean, PADI has standards that they teach. They can't just be doing willy-nilly stuff, right? They're going to be going over what the risks are, how to rescue, blackout, all that sort of stuff, right? So what I would say is, yes, but what I would do if you're concerned, I mean, and so here's what I would, you should do this with anyone you're diving with, right? Is, you know, let's say you got some guy and he's like, oh yeah, I took a class 5 years ago. Okay. So he has the knowledge in his head to do something, to rescue if something goes wrong. Show me. Right? So what I think you should do is, I don't mean you, I mean anyone, when you go out diving with someone, right? The way that, when I took this course, backtrack a little bit, when I took the freediving course in 2008, I was very aware of something that we call skill degradation, right? So when I was a scuba instructor, I taught the rescue course all the time, right? Scuba rescues are complicated as hell. Way more complicated than blackout. Blackout rescue is so simple, right? Put them on their back, take their mask off, blow across the ice. Way more complicated. Scuba diving rescues, you got to tow them, you got to take a breath every 5 seconds, and you got to undo this buckle, and then you got to breathe again, and then you got to undo the other buckle, and then you got to breathe again, and then you got to get this arm out of the BC, and then give another breath, and then you got to get the other one out of the BC, and then give a breath, and you got to take the thing off. I mean, it's complicated to do scuba rescues. It's so complicated, right? And when I would teach the rescue class, the students would always be like, wow, I can't believe how effortlessly you do that. Yeah, because I teach this class all the time, right? It's not because I rescue unconscious divers all the time. It's because I teach the class all the time, which is why my skills are sharp. Okay, so when I took the freediving class, I quickly realized that, yeah, I can do this blackout rescue fine because Kurt made me do it 20 times over 4 days. So I was very confident that I'd be able to do that blackout rescue. If I had an issue, someone had an issue 2 weeks after the class, I'd be all over it, right? I knew as an instructor that skill it degrades, right? I'm not going to always stay where I was. So one of the things I implemented right off the bat is the person I used to dive with, Aaron. We used to, when we would go spearfishing, we would end every session before we got on the boat is she would come up from a dive, simulate a blackout, and I would do the rescue, right? And then I would simulate a blackout, and she would do the rescue. It would take 2.5 minutes, and then we'd get on the boat, right? So one thing I would tell you is, regardless of what agency they took, they can say they have whatever knowledge they want. Say, okay, let's just do a quick blackout rescue, right? If you see them knock it out, they're good. You see them, what? Okay, at that point, it doesn't matter who taught the class, what agency it was. If they can't do it, they can't do it. So I can't, specifically say, what's going on in the class, but I would say any freediving class out there is going to teach them the risks, going to teach them how to do the rescues. I would just, if you have any concern, test. And that will tell you really what you need to know. Okay? Hopefully that was helpful. Michael Davis. All right, so it's 8 o'clock. I am wrapping this thing up. So for those of you that tuned in for the whole show, thank you very much. I said it before, but I'll just say it again. If you guys support the show, if you like the show, if you appreciate that I sit around here and answer your questions and go over this stuff, I have one simple thing that you can do to help support this show, and it's very simple. As soon as you turn this thing off, hit the share button, put it on whatever platform you're on, and tell them, Free Dive Live with Ted Hardy is awesome. You should tune in on Monday to Friday at 7 p.m. Do that one single thing. That means the world to me. That's going to put that show out there so more people can see the show. We can grow the show. So that's the last thing I would ask of you. So I will see you tomorrow. If you guys are tuning in, I'll be doing it tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And hope to see you then. And dive safe out there. It's not even that hard, especially when you can go to freedivingsafety.com and learn how to not kill yourself for free. All right, see you guys.